Listeners, hello, welcome back for the fan show. Before we begin, the FBAs, the Football Blogging Awards, we're still pushing for that. So if you haven't seen it already, we have a pinned tweet on our Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, check the top of the description. It's one click to get to a link. Click it once more to tweet it. That's your vote for us. And we want to go to Old Trafford and come back with silverware or something, don't we, boys?
Not many teams have ever done.
I'm just worried, Jack, that people will have had the opening bit and thought, oh no, Ben's not on this week. Don't worry, listeners, I am here.
Panic over, everyone. Run the intro. So here we are, listeners, for the fan show. I think this is the 5th show of the year, boys. Ben is here, as he's already said. Ben, why am I talking instead of you for this bit?
Because I'm doing a Sean Dyche impression for this show.
You do sound very Sean Dyche, Ben. Actually.
Yeah, well, we've had a tough game out there today, but we've got a 2-0 win against Liverpool despite having 2 passes. I could feel a bit under the weather, folks, so I'm going to let Jack take the reins today. I think Jack introduce Keno and then tell us what we're doing.
Keno,
Hello,
you are here, aren't you? Just to confirm, you've not gone anywhere.
No, I'm feeling a bit better than Ben, but I do feel a bit bad.
I mean, that's saying a lot as a Villa fan as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that is, and Ben soldiered on to get onto the show tonight.
It's brave of him today. So, Ben, you couldn't do a feature this week because your voice is a little bit Sean Dyche.
Yeah,
so I had to come up with a feature. So this is something
has
new.
Stepped into the breach.
I'm about to lose my feature virginity. Can we call it that? Well,
yeah, I mean, you have done.
We just have. I've just broken one rule today. We're going to talk all about the rules because in the Premier League, as you guys know, there's been the new rules with kickoffs and various other rules. And today, we have a feature all about rules in football from
we were all wondering what
history.
Jack was going to do here.
There is a link there, very tenuous. But yeah, so we're going to do a true or false. There are 4 questions for each of you. I'm going to give you a rule in football. You just have to tell me if it's real or not.
Will my qualification in refereeing be of use, sir?
Probably not, unless you were born 100 years ago.
I wasn't. Continue.
Well, that's good. Excellent. Right, who wants to go first? I mean, it's 0-0 in your yearly score between the two of you. So
I feel like this is going to be the one time. This is for all the bragging rights, if anything.
Neither of you's answered. Ben, you're going first. I've decided.
Yeah, no, I thought that was fine.
Dim the lights in the studio, please. Right, first question. During the early 1900s, there were no linesmen. As a result, in the event a referee wasn't sure whose throw-in it was, a coin would be flipped and the winning team would get the decision.
It sounds too well written to be you.
That's what I thought straight away.
So I'm gonna say that is true. That is what they did.
I'm afraid to say, Ben, it's false. It's not true. I just made that one up.
You wrote that down. Oh no, I've been conned. All right.
You have been. Right, Keno, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So, back in the 1970s and 80s, there was the Alliance Premier League, which was like the conference, except there weren't promotions.
Right.
True.
In the 1983 season and beyond, did teams get 2 points for a home win and 3 points for an away win?
So, like a yes or no? Or what?
Well, true or false? Did they? Do you think it's true? Do you think you got 3 points for an away win, but only 2 for a home win?
I feel like that might be quite a logical thing, considering that the non-league pitches and etc. might have been such a leveller. I'm going to say yes, that is true.
That can't be true.
It is true.
Yeah,
it lasted 4 seasons, and Bath City, in the second season of it being implemented, finished 4th. But if they'd been getting 3 points for a win, they would have finished top.
I feel like this is a really educational feature.
There we go. That was only like, 30 years ago that they tried that as well?
Let's not big up the feature too much until we're at the end, Keith.
Right. Anyway, next one, Ben, for you. Okay. During the first MLF season, There was a rule in place which limited the number of defenders permitted in the penalty area to 5, excluding the goalkeeper.
Oh.
True or false?
Did you say MLS, by the way?
I did indeed.
The MLS did have some mental rules.
It does sound a very American thing.
There was
to do.
quite a few. I don't know if you've got any more coming up, but there was quite a few like crazy rules to begin with. Like penalty kicks were from the halfway line, for example. So if I've spoiled on your future ones.
They were from 35 yards out, I believe. They were called 35-yard kicks.
Yeah, well, they would dribble.
They're not coming up for the record. They're not.
It's
coming
like
up.
hockey.
Okay. I'm going to say true.
I'm afraid to say, Ben, it's false again.
Why do you say I'm afraid to say and then just say it's false? That is too misleading.
It's the false hope. It's the false hope that kills you, isn't it?
You
You think I'm bluffing, and I'm just being brutally honest.
Okay,
Callum,
down. It's not going well.
It's your go again. You've got another opening season question, and it is in the opening season of the J-League in 1993.
Oh, of course, there was a Japan reference coming in here.
A rule was in place which replaced throw-ins with kick-ins, in which a free kick would be taken from off the pitch. True or false?
I think that's too much of a radical departure from the game of football at this.
Dear.
I mean, how long's the J-League?
1993. This was season.
Yeah, I think that's false. I think 1993.
That's true.
They wouldn't have changed that.
I hate to tell you, it's true.
No way.
And also, this rule was also tried out in a few other places, including Bulgaria, the Conference South, and the Under-17s FIFA Youth Cup in Australia.
I mean, that is 4 competitions that are like not connected in any way other than this rule.
It's kind of like they went around and were like, right, we've got this crazy idea. Who wants to try it?
Sorry,
I've watched a video of it online. It's a bit like rugby with it, like, you know, when it just gets booted into the corner. It's really weird. Everything becomes a corner, essentially.
Did you say the Conference South adopted it?
They weren't called the Conference South at the time.
Right.
It was known as... Do I have it? I think I have it written down. It was called the Diadora League, and it was... Well, we'll save it, but it was the Diadora League. 1994 to 95, they tried that. And
what I like is that the South of doing it, and the North have gone, we're not doing that.
It's a terrible idea.
We're not doing that. We're not changing our game.
It's still only 1-0 Callum. I feel like I've done quite well so far, tricking you guys with a few these red herrings. So, Ben, it's yours,
now.
isn't it?
Yeah,
in 2002, Belgium's Top Flight experimented with a rule in which all back passes from outside the penalty area were completely illegal, but it was scrapped after the opening 5 game weeks of the season. So all back passes, you know, you kick it back to keeper's feet, you can't touch it.
What year was this again?
2002.
This is you forget how much has been, you know, how much they meddle with the rules.
You know, mate, it could be bollocks. So
I know, but I mean, the Japan one wasn't.
I think it's got to be false. Why would they change that for that one division? It's got to be false.
I'm afraid to say, Ben, you're right. You've got a point.
Yes.
I was worried for you. You know,
Thank
the feature
you.
expert not to get a question right would have been concerning. Okay. Callum, back to you.
Hello.
In 2014, the Icelandic FA banned use of all coloured football boots, with the only permitted colour being black.
Oh, now this does sound like a...
Why would you ban that, though?
Yeah, but...
It's a strange thing to ban, isn't it?
Yeah, but I could see it.
There's some weird rules in football.
The fans. Oh.
Yeah, but, I mean, come on.
What year was this again? Sorry, I feel
2014.
Like so this is...
recent.
I'm not sure they did that in 2014. I just can't see it at this stage. So I'm going to say no. False.
Callum, you are correct.
Yeah.
You have 2 points to Ben's 1, which means, Ben, going into your last question... I mean, you need to get it right, I'm afraid.
Pressure's on. So is this to level it up?
This is to level it up, but
have you got a tie
does
break?
have a going. I do have a tie break, and we'll do it anyway for all the marbles. No, that would make the rest of these points, but we'll do it anyway because it's interesting. Yeah. So, Ben, in the FA's initial rules of football, it was stated that the goalkeeper could handle the ball anywhere in his own half as long as he wasn't carrying it.
I like the idea of doing like a volleyball spike to the halfway line and then just booting it as well as you can. I mean, we'll say true. I'm going true.
I'm going to tell you now, it's true. They used to do that.
It does sound...
They reverted the rule after a goalkeeper figured out, wait a sec, I can just play basketball in my own half, and he'd bounce it up the pitch with his hands.
Yeah, you could bounce it.
And
I mean, the volleyball technique
from the
wouldn't be optimal,
line.
I'll be honest. Yeah, the volleyball
but I thought
technique
that was a really weird rule, because the way it was originally written basically was you can't carry it. So I'm not sure what they were expecting people to. Like maybe that hand juggling thing when the ball's in front of you and you kind of mess around. Keno, we're coming to you. The last question.
He's got to get it
to win it.
During the 1973 season, the South African Football League implemented a rule which allowed each team to have a power play. In this time, a team was able to field an extra player. However, this player had to remain in the opposition half.
Oh, he'll probably know this, as well. It's the sort of thing he'd know.
Me?
The easy ones.
He's trying to get in my head here. I think it sounds like a 1970s thing in South Africa to do. So I'm going to go with true. I think they did.
I hate to tell you this, Callum, but it's not right. I've made that one up. I thought it was a great made-up one.
That's a very well made-up one. Like the power play option.
Yeah.
I was thinking cricket, and I was thinking cricketing nations that are obscure. South Africa. They might try something mad.
I didn't realise there's such depth to the narrative that you're spinning here, Jack.
Jack's put so much work
into
this.
Yeah.
You both got
so he should. It's his only one ever. If this
true.
isn't good, then,
I mean, I had to try and impress the listeners, didn't I? I sometimes criticise your features, so I had to go all out. We have a tiebreaker.
Excellent.
We talked about the kick-ins earlier. As I mentioned, they were in the Diadora League, and they started in 1994. But for how many seasons did the league have kick-ins in the rules? I'll let Kido go first because Ben went first before, so I need a number. For a number of years, that the Diadora League from 1994 used the kick-in rule instead of throw-ins.
What was the Diadora League again?
Is it the Conference South
Conference South, sorry.
But of course, there wasn't promotions.
They can't have done
there might not have been.
They can't have done that for very long.
Some say, listeners, they're still doing it today.
Yeah. Okay, 2 years.
2 years. Ben,
God,
I need an answer from you.
I would probably have said 2 years. But so is it closest?
It's closest, correct.
All right, then logically I'll just say 3 years.
We have a winner.
Oh, no.
No one got it right.
Was it a year? 1 year?
Diadora used kick-ins for 4 seasons.
I don't believe that.
4 seasons.
I can't believe that.
I should point out, it was scrapped in the J-League Australia, Belgium and Hungary after a year. They went, no, we're not doing this.
Of course, that's what you do. That's why I went with
Did you say in the first question, Jack, that it was for 4 years?
I didn't know. I mentioned when it started.
That would have been quite clever, actually, to drop the...
I feel like you did mention 4 years to do with something.
Right, so there we do. There we go, winner.
So I've won the feature.
I will never win a feature.
I am king of the features. That's the why. King of the features.
I have to remember what we...
From one feature master to another. That was very good.
Very good, Jack.
Here all week. The truth be told, I looked online for obscure rules for the feature. I can only find 5, so I can't do 5 questions right. True or false it is, and I'll make some up for the narrative.
You've adapted one of mine there, I'll tell you that. One of my excellent features.
I've got to be honest, I'm now sat here going, what do we normally do in the podcast at this point? And what we do is we go into the football. So we're going to do just that. We're going to start off with the Manchester Derby. Some say a game which showed a coming of age for the Premier League. Do you guys agree? Discuss. I mean,
I'll let Kino lead in because I'm ill.
See, I'm so. Do you know what? I'm so used to Jack just wading in on a question that Ben's puts to the group that I sort of follow up. I think. I mean, you could say that really this season is the first time in the Premier League that we've sort of had the level of quality that we used to have maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I think while this game. It was a fantastic battle in the second half, and in the first 40 minutes, it was probably some of the best football I've seen in the Premier League for a good few seasons. There was a lot of quality on display, but it was, as I think Mourinho likes to make them, particularly in the second half, a bit of a war of attrition. City, I thought, did very, very well. I don't know what you thought about this, but John Stones in particular and Otamendi are absolute warriors in the second half. And while obviously there is a lot of quality on display, I don't think players like Ibrahimovic and Pogba really shone. De Bruyne really was the one player for me who I thought was head and shoulders above everyone else on the pitch for most of the game. Had a hand in both their goals, obviously. But the City defence in the second half really was something that took me aback by how strong they were, and to respond to the sort of constant bombardment from Man United for the final sort of half an hour.
Yeah, I was surprised that Mourinho set up as he did. Mourinho is known for being this quite pragmatic manager, or change it.
Yeah.
But it was almost a little bit like Mourinho said, well, you want to take us on? Come and take us on. And 40 minutes gone, United hadn't done anything. Like,
No.
City was so good.
I don't think City let them do anything, really.
Well, no,
I'll tell you who did let them do something. Claudio Bravo.
Yes, come under some criticism, hasn't he?
A
But I
debut
thought...
to remember?
I
Maybe
mean,
not for the right reasons.
I mean, I'm sure he'll remember it, but for the wrong
I really
reasons.
liked Guardiola in the post-match interviews when asked about Bravo. He said it was one of the greatest debuts I've ever seen.
Yeah,
was
bit
what he
much, wasn't
said.
it? I felt like a bit much, that one. But
Might be better than Joe Hart's debut.
yeah, I was really impressed with De Bruyne, though. I think, obviously, they didn't have Aguero, and there was a lot on the shoulders of Iheanacho, and I thought De Bruyne sort of took on a lot of that sort of pressure up front, ran the channels really well, came deep when he should have done. I think... I mean, I think I might have said before on the podcast, but for me, he's one of the best players in this league, and he's probably a little bit underrated. I don't think that many people consider him to be one of the best players in the league.
I think I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
There's something quite bittersweet about the fact he's like dominated a game against a Mourinho side, isn't there, as well?
Because of course he sold him, didn't he? He sold him away.
Yeah.
But so I was impressed with how good City were without Aguero. But that said, because they obviously took Iheanacho off, didn't they? When they took Iheanacho off, I touched on this last week.
You did say this, yeah.
City lack a striker, and that second half, there was no point to work around. Like, even when it's Iheanacho, who is not the same player as Aguero, at least you've got a target. At least you've got an idea of, okay, this person can try and finish this off, and then you've got other options when you go forward.
I was surprised how soon he was taken off as well, because it was
it didn't look like he needed to be.
60th minute.
It didn't
very
look like he
early
needed to
on.
be. It was strange. I thought that while City looked great in the first half, we've kind of seen it a few times now, that in second halves, when things get a little bit more dogged, City aren't adapting to it as well as maybe they could. You say that Stones and Otamendi had good games. They did, but it was like... they're obviously not planning to have that sort of game.
No, it was out of necessity rather than sort of choice. I agree with that, yeah.
Which I find to be interesting. I think that, as I say, Mourinho got it wrong. I think he knew he got it wrong. And... it was too little too late. They didn't even create the goal. It came from a mistake.
I was almost surprised that
Bravo.
Mourinho didn't make any changes even sooner than half time, because I remember one game years ago, I think when he was at Chelsea, where he changed things after like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just seemed fundamentally like the game plan was completely wrong for a United side playing at home.
Actually, just on that, did you... I can't think of it. It was the Chelsea-Swansea game. You know, Neil Taylor got brought off early.
Yes.
Did you see him mouth to the manager?
He was very angry, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was really cross.
I lip read him, listeners.
Was this an explicit warning coming up?
No,
Is this
he
a
said,
ForTheFans exclusive?
He said, "Why couldn't you have waited until half time? Why did you have to do it in front of everyone?" And psychologically, for a player, that must be quite.
True. Yeah.
It must be quite demoralising. But if anyone wants to watch it back, you can see that's exactly what he says. He says, "Why
I
couldn't
feel
you
a
have waited
little
half
bit
time?"
sad now, knowing that. I'm loved.
It was a shame because
I feel a bit sorry for Neil Taylor. Sorry, Neil.
I do wonder, because Mourinho's relatively... I know he's a big personality, but I do wonder if it's a little bit early for Mourinho to be like who does he pull out there? He obviously he would have had to pull off Mkhitaryan, because that was the change he made.
I was very surprised. I mean, as we're sort of getting into the nitty-gritty, I was very surprised that he started with the midfield he did. That he didn't include. Is Schneiderlin fit for United, or is he out injured?
It's strange.
Because it seemed as though that game was especially in the way that Fernandinho was playing, and you should mention him because he was absolutely fantastic throughout for City. I mean,
has been consistent under Guardiola so far.
Yeah, and I think Guardiola will use him exponentially this year, because he's that kind of complete midfielder, isn't he? Really, he can go forward and support the front 4 or 5 when needed, but as we saw in the second half, he can also put a fantastic shift in. But in this game, he was dominating the midfield for City, particularly in the first half. And as you say, I'm surprised that. I mean, I'm not sure if Schneiderlin's fit or not, but
he was on the bench, so
exactly,
I mean, he's there.
Very surprised that Mourinho went with Pogba in that slightly deeper role. I mean, we mentioned this when they signed him, and sort of in the previews that. I know I certainly did that in the big games. I thought that Mourinho may deploy Pogba a little bit further forward as the 10 and go with two slightly strong or another stronger player alongside Fellaini in the deeper line roles. And I think this game demonstrated that, as we saw in the Euros a little bit, that Pogba in that deep role against quality opposition can sometimes just not have chance to express himself as well. I think really he doesn't have the freedom to be as explosive as we know he can be, and I think that was one of the reasons why he was so quiet this game.
How different could this game have been if Aguero was playing as well?
It's a good point,
City have been absolutely rampant in that first half? because it was kind of like De Bruyne kind of took on all that responsibility. And that United side looked like it was struggling to kind of contain the City team in front of them.
Yeah.
The City team in front of them. So, I mean, they've got to be relieved in some ways, haven't they?
Well, the question is, would De Bruyne have had as good a game if Aguero wasn't there? Did De Bruyne feel like, oh, my mate's not here this week, I'm going to have to try extra hard? Or was it a case of De Bruyne would have been like that anyway? I feel like Iheanacho and Aguero actually play quite similar styles. So while they don't have a lot of striking options, when they bring Iheanacho in, they play to a similar tone. While I think Aguero's probably a little bit more involved because of his experience and his quality, they play in a similar way. So I don't know if the game would have been that different with Aguero. I mean, Iheanacho got his goal, so I mean, are you expecting a few more from Aguero? Maybe, but I didn't think it was. I don't think they missed him. I thought they would.
No,
I thought United would win, and obviously they didn't happen.
Well, De Gea and my fantasy football team looked very, very sad at the result. Right.
You had a great week though, Jack.
I had a fantastic.
Don't bring this up. We could have avoided
later.
this.
I'm looking at the running order.
If anyone wants to join for the fantasy,
you're now 5 weeks late joining the fantasy football league that we have.
Well, they'll have been picked.
If you win from this point, it'll be impressive.
If they've got a team, they should transfer their points, shouldn't they?
I don't know if that's how it works, but I agree that should be how it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right, let's talk about a team who, well, they're going to be upset. West Ham 2, Watford 4, West Ham's fans 0. Because they decided to beat everyone up.
Dimitri Payet with a bit of fantasy football with the Rabona.
I love that.
Troy Deeney said after the game that it was upon seeing that Rabona that the Watford players suddenly realised, we're being mugged off here. We need to actually play.
It pissed me off.
In hindsight, it looks like a bit of a silly move.
My favourite bit about the Rabona was the commentary. Like, the commentator got so excited he forgot to kind of commentate what preceded it, which was a goal. Like, he was
Jonathan Pearce?
No, I can't remember which commentary I watched. It was just one where he just started fanboying. He started going, oh, and then ended up in the back there. He's like, that's brilliant. I loved it though. You don't see enough. You don't see enough Rabonas.
No, I feel like the Rabona generally it still feels quite new. I know Ronaldinho kind of did it. David Dunn obviously perfected it, but since then I don't feel like since that point you've seen a massive. Like, obviously Lamela scored that one, didn't he, in Europe?
Yes.
Yeah.
A few seasons ago. That was probably the best Rabona moment.
I think the best Rabona I've ever seen. That one. Yeah.
What, the goal Rabona?
Yeah, the goal. It was a Rabona sort of half volley.
It was really unnecessary though, because I feel like little gripe here with the Rabona. Just get better with your weaker foot.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't have to Rabona. Not really funny, especially if you're a professional footballer.
I actually think in this case with the Payet Rabona, I think the flight of the ball, the way it sort of span out like. Sort of towards the far post.
Can you do that with your foot, Kino? Can you do that with your weaker foot? I feel like it was the perfect thing to do. That's the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the perfect thing to do in the rest of the game because Watford were galvanised by it, as Deeney said. I mean, in hindsight, it looks like a foolish decision.
I mean,
I like the fact that now Payet's going to have to think, I don't want to do any more Rabonas. I don't want to upset the other team.
We've talked a lot about Watford, and I don't want to say we bigged them up at the start of the year, but we didn't really underestimate them. Whereas a lot of their fans were very critical of kind of their squad this year and a little bit worried. And there's a few players like Ighalo and Deeney who really hit the ground running last year. And in the second half of the season, I think between them, they got a handful of goals. I think Ighalo, like it's his first goal in like a ludicrously long period of time. Yeah, it's absolutely mad. Is this the kind of result now that Watford can kind of take and build off? Obviously 4 goals away from home against West Ham. You know, it should be a fortress here at the Olympic Park or the Tesco Arena or whatever it is.
London Stadium, it's called.
The London Stadium.
Well, there you go.
London's only stadium.
I mean, apparently so.
I should say, actually,
London is this?
the Ighalo stat that I just put out, I think he had an incredible 2015, and then from the new year onwards, he was basically anonymous for Watford. I think that may have been his first goal in the league this year. But it was one of his first either way. And you're right, if they can, I mean, they had such a great start to the season. If they can sort of move that on and replicate that, and maybe Matsari with their slightly expanded squad can rotate a little bit, keep them a bit more fresh, they could hopefully do a little bit better in the second half as well. I thought Pereira was it for Watford, was excellent. One of their new signings
from Juve.
Juve, yeah. He came for a fair bit of money, I think. I can't remember how much they signed.
Around about 15, maybe.
Yeah, it was one of Mazzari's first signings, and he said it in the post-match interview that he was one of his first choices. He really wanted to bring him in, and he ran the show for Watford with Capoue as well, who's been arguably one of the best midfielders in the league so far this
top
season.
scorer in fantasy football
Yeah,
after all the game weeks.
Yeah, come in with another goal, and it was really impressive. I don't know what you guys think about Bilic, really, wherever, because you've got to think now, West Ham have not had a good start to the year. They're already out of Europe. How long do you think Bilic has before, obviously not before his position comes under scrutiny, but before some questions begin to be asked of him?
I feel like with West Ham, as long as they're in the top half, they probably wouldn't sack him until the end of the season. I think it's that kind of appointment where even if you're not doing that great, it offers a degree of stability, and especially at this point in the season, like, who is there to bring in to kind of do a job for you? There's no one. Not suggesting, of course, you'd want to sack him this soon.
Don't you feel like Bilic would be a lot safer if they were still in Europe, though? I feel like now they're out of Europe, it's become a lot less secure for him.
I feel like he'd be safer, and the other issue he's got is because he's not in Europe. I feel like that almost escalates the expectations elsewhere. It's a case of, but you've got all these players we've spent money on. I know AU's injured for however many months. He was £30 million.
Yeah.
But you've spent all this money. We've got to Europe. We've worked hard for it. We've missed out again when we really, really shouldn't.
It's incredible when you think about it that, the West Ham spent the entire of last season, 10 months, trying so hard to get into Europe, and the way that the qualifiers work, obviously, they were before the season had even begun in the Premier League. Virtually, all that work had been for nothing. They were already out. I mean, it's a huge blow, and I think you were bang on, Ben. That while it hasn't, I don't think it's Bilic will be getting sacked anytime soon. If they had the sort of European campaign to one side, kind of in the same way that Ranieri does, I think, for Leicester with their Champions League sort of market.
He's got a 3 year, hasn't he now, Ranieri?
Yeah, it's a kind of a side project almost that keeps everyone happy, and Bilic doesn't have that. So their league form will need to be pretty good this year to
Well, yeah, I feel like it's the tale of two fan bases wanting. Like, I think the worry for Watford fans is like the reality of their situation. They've got a new manager and they've got quite a lot of new players, and it's just sort of the fear of, can we kind of get away with this again? Because it's not something that they see regularly. I know they've had it for a few years at Watford now. I think it was just the fear of, okay, lots of teams around us are actually spending quite a lot of money, and while we've spent money, it was like the fear of the unknown for Watford. And I think with West Ham, the expectation levels have risen, the ground's risen, the stature of the club is supposedly risen, that they expect so much more now. And I mean, the fact the fans are having a fight in the stand, I don't care what it's about.
Yeah, we should talk about that. It was not good to see.
Like they've had a tough start. They've played away at Chelsea, away at City, and two teams that we think will challenge this year. But games against Bournemouth, they beat Bournemouth, but to lose 4-2 at home, to be fair, I don't really care what the result is. You shouldn't be fighting in the stands. It's sickening. I hate it.
Well, some reports were saying they were fighting about standing up.
So apparently there's been a big crackdown in the London Stadium of fans standing up during games.
Obviously, it's difficult when you transfer, don't you, from a place like Upton Park where they
a
can
more
get
conventional
away with it.
football stadium. Yeah, exactly. And also, I believe there was some issues. I've heard loads of like police radio signals were a problem in the stadium itself, and it's difficult to coordinate. I know there was the charging of the Watford fans.
Yeah.
I think Sorry,
go on,
continue.
Jack,
well, I was going to go back to the football. So unless you've got,
I was just gonna say, you mentioned Upton Park. A lot of times, like you'll know this, as a season ticket holder, you almost get to know the stewarding staff at grounds.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So the relationship between you and that steward is different. Like, if they know you're going to be responsible, generally speaking, they'll probably let you stand up for longer than you should.
Right, so it definitely happens in the whole stand at the Villa. Yeah.
But if you go to a new venue, which needs probably a lot more people, they're going to be a bigger spread. People will have moved where they sit. The relationships with staff will be completely different. And I think as a fan, I don't think necessarily you should if there's any excuse to be fighting. But I do imagine there is sort of the understanding that you once had is now gone, and that can be quite frustrating. If you say you've stood for the last sort of 4 years at West Ham, and now every 10 minutes you've been told to sat down, or every 5 minutes you've been told to sat down, I'm sure there is a difference there. And while I agree that the stewards are basically just doing their job, there has to be a bit more give and take. And I wonder how much that played into the sort of the animosity at London Stadium. That's horrible.
Yeah,
really wasn't good to see. Not good.
So we talked about last podcast, I believe, about how important this result and game was for Watford, because they played Arsenal last week, or 2 weeks ago, because the international break, or was it last week? No, it was 2 weeks ago. International break, of course, ruined our flow. So it was 2 podcasts ago. We talked about the fact Watford, they lost to Arsenal at home. They were playing West Ham away, and then they had to go and play United at home. Now, I think this result is a massive result for them, because following that game, They've got Bournemouth, Burnley and Middlesbrough. And really, if you're a team with the situation Watford are, which I think realistically this year they're kind of looking to finish 15th or above, which I think would be fair. Like, you want to have some kind of positivity going into it. And that's not necessarily discounting them out or disregarding them, but, before that United game. But I do wonder how much this can act as a springboard, particularly the nature of the win coming from 2 goals behind at half-time. Like, it was a great fight back. And it showed a little bit of spirit, which I don't want to say I've doubted in Watford. But kind of the end of last season, the second half of last season, they had the points they needed. They didn't really care about a lot. Obviously, they had the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think that's a problem that people have sort of said could potentially happen to Watford because of the way that they operate with their players and the way that they bring new players in. They virtually turn their squad around every summer. So it's always unclear as to how well those players are going to gel. I actually thought they were quite surprising last year with the team spirit that Sanchez Flores managed to create in such a in a relatively short period of time. They did lose a bit of momentum towards the end, but it looks like 2-0 down away at West Ham to come back and win 4-2 like that's pretty impressive for any team. So going by the evidence that we've seen this weekend, Matsari seems to have got them going really well. So, yeah.
Shall we move on to the next game? Swansea 2, Chelsea 2. I don't want to say I'm surprised by this result, but I kind of had Swansea kind of counted out before this game even began. I know Leroy first had a great start to the season, really. But it's a Chelsea side who obviously they've been going in hot. They've continued that form here to an extent, I guess.
Well, they looked in the first half as though they were going to repeat the performance at Swansea from 2 years back, where they were, I think, about 4-1 up by half.
Yeah, it was crazy.
35 minutes in, they looked red hot. And for whatever reason, I mean, we can talk about the second half and the Cahill foul, or etc. For whatever reason, they just couldn't continue it. They couldn't kill the game, and 2-0 was not a good enough scoreline for them to carry on through.
Ben, any thoughts on this game as a whole? Was you surprised by the fact Swansea kind of fought back so quickly to get that 2-1 lead? I think it was 2 goals.
I think it's Jack, they did fight back. They cheated though, mate. Because I mean, Gary Cahill's annoyed.
He's very annoyed, isn't he?
He did a great tweet.
The one thing from this is Gary Cahill is annoyed.
I was going to come on to this whole animosity about this game because Cahill's he's not taken it very well, has he? Should we talk about it now? How do you see it?
But rightly so. Well, I think it all links into the fact Swansea fought back. But Leroy first second goal, the second goal for Swansea is just daft. Fouls him probably twice in the build up to the goal, and Cahill it must be perplexing as a defender when that sort of thing happens because you feel like I've been so misdone, like I'm so hard done by here, and they've got away with it. And in the Premier League, like he said at the end of the game that he knows because he's been part of it that title-winning sides need sort of that bit of fortune. They need decisions like that to go correctly for them to win the league.
For sure.
And while they've got a toe rag on their team with Costa, they need that sort of decision to go their way. You look at City. If this sort of thing happens to Chelsea again, City start to pull away. Like it's only 2 points, but it all adds up. Yeah. But Diego Costa's in good form, isn't he? He looks like the old Diego Costa.
When you mentioned that Costa was a toe rag, I thought the Swansea fans are giving him some treatment for the whole game. And particularly after he scored his first goal, which was a brilliant finish, after a bit of awareness from Oscar, which I think he's so good at in the penalty area. Didn't have a lot of time and picked out Costa, who finished really well. I thought Costa had mellowed out a little bit. He didn't seem to be sort of firing back as he often did.
I think he's bobbling though, Kino. I think he's waiting to do something horrendous.
And then he put in an incredibly late challenge from behind. I think Jordi Amat, who had been marking him for most of the game. Referee didn't see because he picked his moment, and I was like, no, he's back. And the overhead kick as well. There's been a bit of a debate, around whether, because there are a few overhead kicks in the Premier League, and also Gested scored one for Villa in the Championship, which was kind of like that.
Good
Villa reference for the week.
Well, it just adds to the body of evidence that a lot of people are saying, should those goals have stood, because there were studs very high from all 3 players. Actually, obviously the other one was Koscielny, his goal for Arsenal.
I think it's quite simple on this though. I think if you make contact with the ball, then it's fine. If you miss the ball, then it's high foot.
But if you hit the ball and hit them in the head, then what?
Then then it's probably foul. But it's probably dangerous play, Jack.
The issue here is
foolish.
the issue I have with if you set that precedent is, for example, on the Koscielny one, it's so easy for a player for Southampton just to throw his head towards the ball in the general area. Like if you make it as kind of black and white as kind of if you make contact with the head, you just can see defenders charge in and try and get a hit on their head. As mad as that sounds,
Yeah.
I mean, with the Costa incident in particular, I mean, I'm going to show you. It's that moment of the week where Ben really removes the listeners and shows you a picture. Right, look how high Carl Norton's leg is.
This isn't an audio feature.
No, but what I'm saying is, for the listeners, Carl Norton's leg at the point in which Costa makes contact is arguably higher than Diego Costa's.
Actually, from the picture you've seen, it just looks like Diego Costa's like doing the craziest kick ever on McNaughton into the air, or Mick Norton. Yeah. Just adding Mick in there. Why not?
Mick Norton. Yeah.
Mick Norton.
But I think I speak on everyone in football. We like an overhead kick.
Like, you love an overhead kick. When they
I want more overhead kicks. I feel like every game should have one.
Double points.
Whether it's do you know what, double goals for overhead kicks? I mean,
Shaqiri's one in the Euro should have got about 5 then, shouldn't it?
I'll use that in my feature next week. Was that a rule? Did they have double points for overhead kicks? I'll try and set it up.
Ben, it's probably been tried for about 5 years somewhere. So
yeah. The Conference North have tried it just to make it a little bit more fancy, a little bit more flair. But for Chelsea, points dropped, innit? I mean, however you look at it, they've let Swansea get back in. Doesn't matter how it's happened. And John Terry looks like he's going to miss the Liverpool game as well. Which
I'm a little bit split on Chelsea because Chelsea. I'm going to go back to the almost season for Liverpool. I'm afraid.
I feel like we do this every week now.
But no, we're going back for a different reason this time. Because the reason I go back
sorry, Jack, a bit of breaking news. Man City's game against Mönchengladbach has been called off.
There was rumours it might be. It's been very stormy up here.
Stormy. Yeah, too many overhead kicks.
Should we go back to...
Sorry, Jack,
I can't remember where I was now. Where am I? What was I going to say? I was going to go... The nearly season. So the reason I go to that is because Chelsea that year, they get let off the hook a little bit because they beat all the teams in the top 4 and it was slipping up against teams like Swansea in this game, and I think they lost to Sunderland twice, home and away that year. That actually cost them the title. And you kind of mentioned it with kind of the Cahill, he knows how much this game matters. I don't want to get to the end of the season and look at it and be like, well, the Premier League title was decided on the fact that Chelsea here were incapable of beating a team like Swansea away from home. And I'm sure that's not how the fans want to see it either. And it's a lingering problem I always have with Chelsea is they always seem to do fairly well against the top teams because they have top quality players of their own. But there's some games where they just can't quite grind out the result, and this was very reminiscent of that for me.
I think Conte's the sort of manager that will be able to do that, though.
I'm looking forward to seeing how he might change things around with a few more players getting perhaps match fit and stuff. It should be very interesting.
I wouldn't have been looking forward as a Chelsea player to go back into that dressing room at full time after it was 2-2 because
I think. We discussed it, Kino. I don't think Conte is a shouty manager.
Not in that scenario. I think at half time he is, but
I think he's like a parent. Like the parents you put on a really nice facade when you're around your friend's house, but as soon as you get home, they just give you the biggest shouting in the world. If you
bit of a modern day Van Gaal Conte, though. I think it wouldn't. I think I even said to Kino that it wouldn't surprise you if Conte walked in, bollock naked, stood there, looked them all in the eyes, and just went for a shower. And that was it. That's all that happened.
That sounds like he's trying to exert his dominance. I can imagine.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Jack. That's what he's trying to do.
I can imagine like a geography show on it. It's like, and here we have the male exerting his dominance. Should we move on that note? Liverpool exerted their dominance over some foxes.
Conte would definitely tut and then go for his shower. He'd look around and then go. I think they just go. Anyway, sorry, Jack. Yes,
I had a great link there, and you've
sorry.
It. Liverpool exerted their dominance over the brilliant. I'm trying now to think of a put on the fly, but
I'm just trying to be you, Jack. That's the problem. I'm just trying to interrupt everything.
This is what it's like, Jack.
I know the struggles now, listeners. I'm sure it's not this bad.
You're hearing you, Jack.
Liverpool demolished Leicester, destroyed them. I'm being biased here. Discuss.
You're going to get bias calls for saying that, Jack.
I am, but it was 4-1. It was kind of. It's quite convincing, isn't it?
It was a demolition.
Would you like the neutral to kick things off so they can't accuse us of being biased? I mean, Liverpool. We're talking about Liverpool 39 minutes in, so I think we've done okay.
That's fair to begin with.
I thought that Liverpool looked, in the first half in particular, bar Lucas's error, which I'll touch on in a minute. I thought they looked excellent, really, really good. But as I just mentioned, the Lucas era still highlighted for me the slight soft underbelly that I think has been present in Liverpool. Probably, I mean, even throughout the Rodgers period, I think there are times, and there were times in the Leicester game when the football was absolutely scintillating. I think the assist from Sturridge for Mane's goal and that whole move was one of my favourite goals of the season so far, actually, just because of the speed it was done and the way it flowed. As I say, some of that was superb. But there still is the feeling, and I mean, Klopp's reaction to when his name was being sung by the Liverpool fans, I think he knows that there is a chance in any game that his team can sort of have a bit of a shaky 10-20 minutes and maybe lose it. And I think that is the thing that might hold Liverpool back this year from being maybe a top 4 side. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well,
but
I'll say there, I've not seen Liverpool defend yet this season.
That's true.
It's just like Liverpool just do attacking, and defending is kind of the secondary get out.
If we have to.
If we have to, we'll give it a go. I should say, though, on that, you mentioned the soft underbelly. I don't know what you feel, Jack, because obviously you've watched it as much as me. Joel Matip is bloody wonderful.
I love him.
He does defending, he does heading, and he's done tackling.
He looks competent, doesn't he? Which is
I
haven't seen a competent centre back in a Liverpool shirt
no.
I'm trying to think now. Since when? Carragher? Is that going too far? Is there anyone?
I think that's. I mean, him and Agger were like that, but yeah, Matip just looks. I mean, Q speaking against Chelsea, where he makes massive cock up, but he just looks so composed at the moment.
I'm really looking forward to actually seeing Liverpool just have their normal back four, because it's something we've not had. Obviously, Lovren got a boxing
what is it
fight.
Though? What is our normal back four?
Well,
I've got no idea.
I think Klein, Lovren, Matip, and Milner. I had to think about who the left back was there in my head for a second. Yeah. But I think that is the back four that, when they're fit, we'll probably see play the most. Yeah,
Kino mentioned the Sturridge assist. I think I was quite critical on this show, was I not, of Sturridge?
You were, yeah. After the Burnley game, I think.
And I think I quite literally said he ruins everything. He doesn't run. It's the best I've seen him play for 18 months. I'm not even feeling. Not even like he's got a goal in the final of the Europa League.
There, yeah.
It's the best I've seen him play in 18 months. The first time I've seen him sprint at like full pelt for ages. I don't know what happened during this international break. I don't know what's gone on. I don't know what Klopp said to him or someone said to him. But he literally looked. I don't know if it was just the team he was playing. I don't know what it was. But I saw him sprint on a few occasions, and when I say sprint, I saw him run as quick as he can run, and he's very fast. And you mentioned the speed at which the goal was scored. He is a major part of that, and we haven't seen that for a little while.
I've got to be honest. When I see Sturridge run, I'm going, "Watch your hamstrings." I'm like a nervous parent watching, because I'm worried my baby's going to get injured.
I do feel for Sturridge in that regard, because it must be very tough when you know how injury prone you are to really let. I mean, I had this playing myself. If you've been injured and you come back, particularly if you've had a series of injuries, to really trust your body in those sort of high intensity moments that it won't shut down is quite tough. And I think the way that you've seen Sturridge play for the last sort of maybe 6 months to a year for Liverpool has been he's not fully trusted his body to kind of do what his mind wants to do. Do you know what I mean?
I had the same thing with tackling before, where I got an knee injury and I couldn't tackle. And it was like, I can't tackle. It's strange, it's very strange.
If you're Leicester, are you worried? Because, what, is it 4 games now, 4 points?
It's a bit of we kind of touched on it earlier when we mentioned Ranieri, but I feel like it's a bit of a free season for Leicester.
Yeah.
I feel like, at this stage now, it looks clear that City, Chelsea, Everton look very good, United, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal look like, the top 7 is that now. The top 7 is literally City, Chelsea, Everton, United, Tottenham, Liverpool, Arsenal. The top 7 we've kind of come accustomed to. And with Leicester, I don't think anyone's... We kind of realise now that they're not going to hit the same levels that they did last year.
I don't think anyone expected them to.
No, I think there was... Nobody knew that it was like, we can't write them off again, can we? We'll see what happened. But I don't think I'd be worried at this point. There are a few teams I would be worried about, and Leicester aren't one of them. I still think that they'll pull performances against some of the weaker sides, and that's going to be important.
Should we talk about the team I'm most worried about? Sunderland.
Yes.
Moisey. You're not
You're most worried about them. I'm more worried about Stoke, but we'll go with Sunderland.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm very, very worried for Sunderland, because I feel like, actually, you look at their squad, it's just not very good. They've lost 3-0 here against an Everton side, which, granted, new manager, Lukaku firing on all cylinders. not scored in over 1,000 minutes before this game. And he's just pulled out a hat-trick and he looks incredible. And actually, I thought Balassi impressed me as well, kind of slotting in there too.
It was a great quote. I think it was before the game when David Moyes was talking about his time. It could have been even in the pre-weekend press conferences where David Moyes was asked about his time at Everton. And he said that he was one top-class striker away from having a real crack at the league title. Obviously, in those years, where Everton sort of consecutively finished sort of fourth.
See, I think I saw the quote like Lukaku. If I had Lukaku, I would have won the title with Everton.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
The reaction though was brilliant because the reaction was. Remember when you had Robin van Persie at Manchester United, David? No,
exactly.
they mentioned that.
And the irony, of course, was that when it actually came to the game, I don't think he name-checked Lukaku in that quote, but when it came to the game, it was a top-class Everton striker in Lukaku that buried them.
Strange player, Lukaku, though, isn't he? In that he's
very, very streaky in the way that he scores goals.
Yeah, his pattern of scoring isn't really a pattern. It's just like, as you say, it's streaky. I still don't know if we've seen the best of him, which I think is the most exciting thing. The stat is forever put around that he's got more goals than Ronaldo, Rooney, Ibra, etc. At his age, he's got 100 and something already. And while that's great, it's like you still haven't proven to me that you're a top striker in Europe, and I think that's what he wants to be, and he's trying to be. And does he have to move to get that? I feel like he probably does, which is a bit harsh on Everton, perhaps. But I feel like
we'll have to wait and see.
I was very surprised he didn't move as well. Actually, in the summer, I think the new manager's come in and perhaps had a few words with him and gave him some assurances about this season. And I do wonder for Everton, where can they aim? Because obviously 3-0 here against Sunderland is great and all. But it's not exactly the kind of game where you can look at it and go, right, this is our catalyst now to finish top 7.
No, you're probably right.
And my worry is that it's going to take a few players who have had a few really bad seasons for Everton to come good if they really want to do that. I look at players like Baines, who a few years ago was being kind of crowned as one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League, and he's kind of just vanished off the face of the earth. Obviously, there's been a big clear out of older players. I do wonder how big a difference a Sissoko might have made in the midfield as well. That one more big transfer in terms of settling Lukaku.
Talking about the midfield, I thought there was one of the standout performers for Everton last night was Idrissa Gueye, who obviously is
that just a Villa nod there, or
no? He played.
He was good though,
well.
Right.
And he was sort of leading. If you look at the stats, was leading the match for passes, pass completion, interceptions, etc., and had got an assist as well. And he looked like the player that we should have signed this time last year. And it was good to see, that we hadn't sort of irreparably damaged him from that horror season.
Well, that's a relief, isn't it?
But also quite frustrating at the same time.
Do you feel like Everton have got a bit of a false position though? Because Everton's results, they played Spurs on the opening day. Then they beat West Brom, who have looked a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. Stoke, who have been dreadful. Sunderland, that have been dreadful. And then their next few games, they've got a home game against Middlesbrough. They've got an away game at Bournemouth and a home game against Palace, which will be really interesting, by the way, because there's quite Balassi in that game is going to be curious. And then they haven't really got a test until a month. They play Manchester City on the 15th of October. That is 32 or whatever it is days from now. It's a long time. It's not impossible that Everton are third now. You could definitely see them winning 2 of those next 3 games as well. You could definitely see them beating Middlesbrough, maybe beating Bournemouth or Palace, maybe all 9. Everton could be this year's Leicester.
They could well be.
I mean, I'm not sure they'd be Leicester in the sense that I think they've got a bit more of a...
No European football either, though. I think
I was thinking about this. I think this might be a Premier League season where the majority of the teams who finish in the top 4 don't play in Europe this year.
It'd be curious, won't it? It'd be very curious if that actually happens.
Should we talk about another team recently? I know we talked a little bit about Sunderland. I kind of feel like it's same old for them at the moment. I feel like until they play, the newly promoted sides and kind of West Brom and that calibre of team, no offence to those teams, kind of, the teams you tout to be down there, we won't really quite know where they stand. Because I feel like this was one of those games where you concede one and it just gets away from you a little bit.
Well, Sunderland will start trying at Christmas, won't they?
Well, they will. Another team that needs to start trying sooner than that, Stoke, and, what a hit by Son. Twice he scored, and Ali and Kane getting into. Kane with a goal as well. I've been worried about Harry. I've been on the phone to him every week in my magical mobile phone.
It's this week, Harry, is it?
It is.
Harry?
Only Kane's second goal in the months of August and September in his career.
I appreciate the stat, but at the same time, he's only really been active as a first choice striker for sort of 2-3 years.
It does show though how customarily a slow starter he is in the league, and then he tends to go on these mad runs from about sort of October through to February.
I wonder why. I wonder what he thinks it's down to. If it's just the case, it's just happening.
I think he's quite a confidence player, actually. I worry for Kane in the sense that I feel like if he isn't getting the service, if he doesn't get a few goals by kind of November time, if he's say on 2 or 3 still, he might really struggle.
This was a big goal for him though, wasn't it?
Of course, but I feel like it didn't mean a lot, and I feel like a goal that wins your team a game gives you a lot more confidence than a goal in a game where you're already 3-0 up against a team like Stoke, who, to be honest, I thought we were going to do a lot better than they've done so far this season. Obviously, they've brought in a few big names, but they're not really giving big performances.
I feel Stoke, we mentioned that in the Watford and West Ham part, that I think, and this is a problem for a lot of teams who have benefited from this new money in the Premier League, they're signing a lot of expensive players, making a lot of big money signings, and the fans, the expectation sort of is artificially raised, when really every other team is also improving at the same rate. So it's not as though a team like Stoke, I don't think, have taken a huge step forward in comparison to your Crystal Palaces or your Watfords or West Hams, but the fans, and I think the owners as well, expect those performances to be much better, and I think Stoke will be one of the primary sufferers of this. It could end up costing Mark Hughes his job, because as you say, they have started incredibly badly. Not one of their new signings has really kicked on, and I worry when I saw the performance of Gianni Mbula, who was their big money signing in January. He's obviously had a lot longer to bed in than some of the newer players. And he's been anonymous so far this year, and you sort of see why Porto let him go for the money that Stoke paid them in January, and I think that's kind of a good example of the way that a few of these signings have lost their way at Stoke.
Well, Stoke didn't really do, and they brought Jarlin in. They brought in Ramadan Sobhi, who's relatively young, isn't he? 19. I think we touched on him a few weeks ago. But apart from that, they've brought a guy from AFC Wimbledon, Ryan Sweeney, who admittedly don't know a great deal about, and Cameron McJanet from Luton, who again, young player I assume, don't know anything about. That's maybe one player to improve their squad on last year. And while they were good last year, and I'm sure from Mark Hughes' perspective, you might have thought, we're only one away from having a real sort of challenging side. I can't really name any other sides that have brought in one marquee signing, especially in the sort of the competitive nature of the middle of the Premier League. Compare them to West Ham, who finished like 2 or 3 spots above them. Yes, they got into Europe, but West Ham have brought in about 15 players. Stoke have brought in Joe Allen, and as much as I kind of rate Joe Allen, it's not. See what I mean though? Like obviously the levels of expectation must be so different, and I don't know what the board at Stoke have thought of. They thought, okay, if we need to spend, we'll do it in January, because it could cost Mark Hughes his job.
And I still feel like a whole swathe of those that kind of group of new signings that they brought in the last 12 months. Obviously, Mbula in January, but players like Afellay and Shaqiri as well to a degree. Last summer, they haven't. Firstly, they haven't really had consistent runs in the side because obviously Shaqiri's had his injury problems, but they haven't really propelled Stoke to, I think, the position that Hughes and the fans expected them to be, his antics in this game in particular, in which they were incredibly poor, I think was a poor attempt at trying to do the sort of old Mourinho thing of taking the focus off the poor performance of the players and more on like his anger as a manager. He was really going off on one on the touchline. Was he sent to the stands? I think
he was. Yeah,
and so I think that it was a kind of a poor attempt at trying to deflect attention, really, because his players were inexcusably bad in this game, particularly at home. Future's not great for Stoke.
We do have one more game written down here. I want to go through it quite quickly because we're going to get onto some viewer kind of answers to our question. But Borough losing against Palace. Benteke goal on his debut very quickly. Wilfried Zaha with an assist and a goal. I mean, this is the kind of game that for Palace they'll go into it knowing that they have to win this kind of game, because I think realistically for Palace, despite the money they've spent in some areas, obviously they've let a few key players go. This is not going to be an easy season for them. It's going to be a struggle. And,
I dare say Borough will be disappointed as well. Borough started the season unbeaten. Palace at home. They've seen the early form of Palace, probably not thought that much of it. and obviously Palace hadn't won. So I don't know. Is it a turn up for Palace to even win this game?
I don't know. I feel like Benteke makes an absolutely massive difference, and of course they've got a second Benteke as well, because it was a bit confusing in this game because he came off for his brother.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you know anything about his brother, but he's only ever played in the French second division, and he was a free agent until last week.
Well, look at Kante. Kante's the promise. I mean, different, but yeah.
I liked it. Christian was like, "Yeah, I'm only coming if you sign my brother too."
There's a few of those actually, where the club signs the younger sibling or the
Torres.
sibling. Yeah, the Torres. Torgan Hazard also was at Chelsea. I think.
I mean, Paul Pogba's brother is thinking, "What? Where's my phone? Why is it not ringing?" He can't believe it. I mean, so's Paul Terry. I bet him and John were so close.
The Masonda brothers. I
think.
don't know if you know about Masonda, but he's a young Belgian player who plays for Chelsea. His two older brothers were also signed for Chelsea. I think they've both been loaned out to like tiny leagues. But their dad is their agent. So it's like the dad's gone, well, if you're going to sign my little one who's 15, you have to sign the two older brothers too.
That's proper Sunday League stuff, that is.
It is, I love it.
Nice. Yeah, and by the way, one of us take corners, one takes free kicks, one penalty. So as long as we're agreed on that, yes, he will sign the contract. Yeah, we only really want Charlie. Yeah, but have you seen Tom? Like, Tom's good, isn't he? He's good. Tom, do some keep-ups, Tom. Tom's doing some keep-ups. Yeah, right, we'll sign him as well. Poor Chelsea. I don't mean that. Chelsea got a terrible record
I
of
will
buying.
say, the reason I love this game the most is because I had a tragedy that turned into the most amazing thing ever. Well, it wasn't in the end, was it? Let's be honest. Reference game on point. Because I took Aguero out my fantasy football team, and he was my captain. I forgot to reassign my captain. Zaha became my captain, and he got a goal and an assist. Loving it. 26 points, I think it was.
Can I just say that proves, listeners, that Jack's not good at fantasy football.
I just wasn't paying attention. I mean, no, calculated.
It was infuriating to see the week that Jack had after we all know.
It was a great week. Firmino had a good... Blassie as well did well. I was loving it. The best bit was when Giroud won a penalty, then Cazorla scored it. That was like 10 points in 1 minute. It was a great week. I'm really high up in our fantasy football. I need to milk it while I can.
Yeah, you are 20th on For The Fantasy, which is pretty good. I don't think I'm anywhere near as high as that.
Shall we get on to some viewer answers? Shall we do it?
Some viewer answers. That sounds weird where you said like that.
I feel like this isn't my role as the host to do this bit, so it's one of you guys. Who's got the Twitter feed open?
Looking at him as we speak.
Yeah. So the question this week was, this week the West Ham fans had got into a bit of a fight, but what do you think they were fighting over? Hashtag ForTheFans question of the week.
Not quite a clunky hashtag there, Ben. I will say.
I think it rolls off the tongue.
I kind of did it on purpose, Keno, not going to lie. Did it on purpose. We've had a lot of answers again, listeners, so good work on this.
There's some pretty good ones, actually. I'll start off with Matt Lockie saying control of the bubble machine at West Ham. You know,
Nathan on Twitter just wrote bubbles.
Bubbles.
I just like the idea of just bubbles.
Fighting over the bubbles.
Is it like offensive, like if you go to West Ham to pop a bubble? Or like do they get touchy about their bubbles being popped? Is that a thing?
I don't know. Friend of the show,
Jack.
Proudy, has had a.
Of course he has.
Oh, not him.
Someone was offered a free West Ham season ticket, and he tried to put it in another bloke's pocket, which I do think is quite funny, actually.
And they all piled on top of that poor bloke.
Breaking news: Cavani scored against Arsenal within like a minute. So, breaking. So there you go.
First for news here on For The Fans.
One of my favourites was by Skinner, who said someone said the distance at London Stadium was acceptable. The viewing distance, because obviously there's been quite a lot made of that, hasn't there? How distant it is.
Always the problem when moving into an
I don't like running
stadium.
tracks, but didn't they move all the stands closer? Like, can't the stands be moved?
There's still a big gap.
Can you move the stands closer?
No,
you just see Liverpool build a new one.
You'll think I'm mad. Like, literally, they do have that. I'm pretty sure. At the London
but
Stadium.
in like about 5 stadiums in the world, and London Stadium, Jack, is not one of them.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure the London Stadium does have it moved to a degree over the track, and then they move it back.
I don't know. One of my favourite answers of the week, selfishly, Jack Crunchley, which is a great surname, by the way.
Great name.
Jack Crunchley. Whether Ben would be better as an FM YouTuber or a FIFA YouTuber. I'd like to think West Ham fans around the world are arguing about that as we speak.
I liked another one, which it's a bit of an obscure reference.
Did you not like that one, Jack? You sounded like
it was okay, but someone said that Ozil was better than Payet.
Yeah, I quite like that. Simple, but effective. Philip Stothers is back. Philo.
Is he?
Love
Some guy said that For The Fans sucks. Beat him up. which is sort of the.
I mean, we said we didn't condone the violence, but if that was,
if that was said, if anyone can confirm that they were slagging off for the
then we
fanshow.com,
wholeheartedly endorse it.
I mean, I can lip read. I've seen it.
But Ben's the chief lip reader.
Hold on.
Now,
because this lack of voice, I've had to adapt other skills, and lip reading was one of them. Simple ones that Kai just said, they got into an argument over what the stadium was called. I imagine that is annoying them. There are some fans that don't like going to London Stadium.
It's annoying me, and I'm got nothing to do with the club or the stadium. I don't like it at all.
Shall we finish off with Mark Tuckers?
Go on then.
They were arguing. They had a fight about which of the 43-man squad is now surplus to requirements now that they're out of Europe again to a Romanian team again, which I think is good.
That one's just come through as well. That is the timely one to end.
Yeah, that is top notch, and that is the end of the.
He's taken over. It's the end of the show, folks.
If you want to get involved at twitter.com/ForTheFans show, Jack.
Ben, you sound so.
Thank you. I've got a confession to make, boys.
What?
With the feature.
You were recording, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Don't you worry.
Good.
I didn't want to make Ben feel bad because he's ill. He's been struggling. I wanted to give him false hope with the feature, and I definitely didn't screw up.
Oh my goodness!
You won the tie-break, my friend.
What?
I'm sorry.
Shocking revelation.
Revelations. Do we end on like the EastEnders ending?
Hold on.
I'm sorry. What?
So the kick-ins. I made a mistake.
Was it only one season? That's what I was going to say.
It was only one season.
I won the
feature. The confusion I had was that the Alliance Premier League had the points thing, the 2 for a home win, 3 for away for 4 years, and I had them written down the wrong way around, and as I read it, I realised,
And this, listeners, is why Ben does the feature.
I can only apologise to everyone, but I feel like it gave Ben the spirit to go through. It was the false hope that kept you going, Ben.
Not going to lie, cared way more about this than I would have done. So
I mean,
I can't. Do you know what? I can't believe.
At least the podcast was good up until this point, and of course this was all part of the plan, and I didn't just screw up by reading it wrong, and I'm desperately looking for excuses.
Shocking revelations.
My question is, Jack, why couldn't you just give? Okay, Jack, last week when you got the answer wrong about Ryan Giggs, and I got the question wrong. Keno won that feature as well. So Keno, congratulations, mate. You just
2 wins in a row.
Points. Well done.
I'll take it. Open arms.
But absolutely furious. In fact, I don't know if I mentioned this. Sorry, Jack, I don't know if I mentioned this. That was actually a double week. That was a double point week. So Jack Keno's actually got 3 points, which means so far Keno has a lead of 3-2. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to impress Ben with the feature.
Livid. Carrie, you do. Good job. I'm not doing that.
I'm glad you've admitted this on air, Jack.
Who would think that the kick-ins lasted 3 seasons? Like, that's mental. They clearly it was a bad idea after one.
The worst thing is, if I'd have said my gut feeling, you'd have said I was wrong.
I mean, and then you would have had the optimism of realising you were right and you had one at the end. And it all would have been right with the universe.
I'd have hated the show, Jack, and more importantly, hated you.
I mean, the thing is, I've got on tape the fact that Ben said he thought my feature was good, so it doesn't matter anything he's saying now, because I'll just cut that sound clip.
Right. Find us on Twitter, @ForTheFansShow, www.forthefanshow.com, soundcloud.com/ForTheFansShow, youtube.com/ForTheFansShow.
Actually, on that, thank you to all the people that have emailed me about a potential help with the website /blog.
Oh, yes, very good.
If I haven't got back to you yet, I will get back to you. I haven't forgotten. We just got way more people inquire than I expected, and
it's a long term.
It could be 2 weeks now, especially with the podcast. Well, with the feature revelations, I don't. Ben, are you gonna be okay to continue on with that venture?
Oh, I don't know, Jack. My voice is getting worse. Actually, I think.
Well, in that case, we better end.
Yeah. Jack?
I'm just sat feeling guilty now. I feel terrible. Right, thank you for watching us. You already said you can catch us on the socials. We're on SoundCloud as well. It should be up this week. If you want to watch on SoundCloud, watch it on SoundCloud, because only if people watch it, we're actually going to keep doing it, because it's been a bit mixed so far. Guys, thank you, Ben. Been a pleasure as always. No words.
Fuck off, Jack.
No words. Keno.
Fuck off.
Thank you thank you, everyone. I want to thank anyone who's helped me get this feature win. I'm really proud.
I mean,
there's one man who's done it, and he's the host for this week. He won't be next week.
And he's here with a big smile on his face. Hope you enjoyed the quiz. We'll be back next time. We've been For The Fans, and we'll talk to you in a bit. We're out.
It's a sculpture of a gold Benji. It's perfection.
Keno, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.